All right, guys, what's happening? So we are back today getting the line running. So I'm going to show you guys some of the details of that and then talk about this Pandem Widebody at SEMA. A few people have emailed me, what do you think about the Pandem Widebody? Well, I was at SEMA. I did look at it, and my opinion was kind of mixed. So stick around. You're watching KnightDriveTV.
I always wanted to build fast cars, so self-taught I started with engine swaps, composites in my apartment to multiple shops, tuning, fabrication, and more. 10 years later, the big time, SEMA, Speed TV, a climb from nothing, but I lost it all. This is my new ride, KnightDriveTV. When failure is not an option, us car guys keep banging the gears of life.
Well, so we got some leaves coming off the trees, and Volk is out here with me, and we are going up in the building here before Kelsey gets here to check the machines. You snooze, you lose, buddy. He waited too long. Sorry. Okay, so I'm running some configuration tests about how I want to configure the kit because I do everything modular. So, you know, basically I have to decide how do I want everything to print in terms of grouping. So here what I'm looking for is adhesion issues. So I look for adhesion issues, and this is kind of how I have them grouped. Each piece for each side is what I'm doing. I'm doing like a driver side and a passenger side, and then doing the mounts. So I try to divide it up to where it's manageable. So I'm going to take a closer look at some of these, make sure they're good to go. So this would be an example of a better outcome, and you can see how solid that outer this is like a brim is basically what this was referred to. But even where it got a little bit stringy, just slightly, I can see right here on the corner of this piece that I had a little breakaway of adhesion. Now these are the small parts you can get away with, and it won't cost you the entire part, but this is stuff that needs to be, you know, very carefully monitored. And so this is part of what I kind of go through with these machines, but they're actually very reliable. So what I'm going to be doing here is I'm setting up everything. Kelsey kind of works in this area here. She is going to be doing the first builds. So I've built all the prototypes to this point. That way I can kind of develop, tweak, change clearances, things like that. But she has never built it. So some of the keys, just for instance, is recognition of which side is which. The things that can cost you time you don't think about until you kind of get to this stage of seeing a lot of parts and a lot of different things going on. What I don't want is, you know, her struggling to know which side's which, trying to look at these parts. It can be confusing as to where they go until it's all assembled. So it may be an issue of me adding a letter that kind of prints with it as a P for passenger or D for driver, something along those lines. But I also want to see how she handles and what her feelings are about, you know, how these parts strip down, how well they assemble. And so I'd probably kind of guide her on one and then see how it goes from there. This is kind of getting into the final piece of the puzzle. Believe me, I want to build and ship immediately, and I know people are waiting anxiously, but this just has to be done. This has to be done correctly, or you run into problems. One issue here that I'm not hugely thrilled about, when you put the bolt down in here, you can't put your finger in here to kind of hold it in place, and I really don't want to take away from the strength of this area, so it's going to cause a little bit of, you know, you're going to have to use your secondary bolt. I'm going to update the install video. Once these go out, there's going to be a new install video, and you're going to see how to deal with this. So while I wait for her to get here, yeah, it is, you know, it is interesting with the Pandem kit. Some of you may have seen it by now. If not, check it out on screen. It is a Japanese-based. Obviously, this was Rocket Bunny, and Rocket Bunny and Pandem. I'm not really sure when Pandem kind of arose. I haven't researched it, but I've been long familiar with Rocket Bunny. He's a one-man show. He started doing a lot of wide bodies in Japan quite some time ago, actually, and he had a really innovative process. I think the rest of the world has caught up to that process. I think he might have done some early photogrammetry techniques to design body kits on the cars because he had a very small shop in Japan. You know, by nature, everything's kind of small, but Generally speaking, the Pandem kits are pretty high quality, very well fit to the body. They're not using clay molds or as plugs. They're not using clay plugs to where you have symmetry issues, things like that. It's all CAD design and things like that. So they've always been pretty good quality pieces. Obviously, the designs of Rocket Bunny and Liberty Walk is another company from Japan. It's a divided deal. On my C8 video of all the C8s at SEMA this year, there's been quite a number of negative comments in the comment section about the Pandem kit that they made for C8. And, I will say, and I will admit, one of the key things about the C2 era Corvette, the mid-year, that everybody kind of likes is that they all agree the design is very cool. And it just has endured the test of time. I think what was always unique about the mid-year or the C2 was the kind of flat fenders. The fender, it would come up, it would kind of flatten out, and it would go along this body line down the car. I think in Pandem's case with the C8, there was some of that. Flavor was probably the cause, but also probably Lamborghini. But it just didn't strike some people well. These purists or people who really don't modify cars, they really didn't receive it well. So you always have that with these wide bodies. You have the crowd that wants this very subtle, like how the C6 GM created the C6 or the C7. It's just this accentuation of the stock body and without being too loud. And in some cases, I think in the C8 Z06s in person, it certainly looks wider and it looks better, but it's almost so well designed it doesn't strike you versus the C8 base model.
Handing out shirts this year.
Handing out shirts. Z06 HTC. What do you think, Laith? What's your thoughts? Give the audience the truth.
I feel like it looks like the base model.
You do?
I really do.
And so that could be good for base model people, but some people are like, no, I want you to know I have a wide body. I want you to see it, understand it. So when the C5, I was kind of surprised. There was no leaks that I found about the C5 having a Pandem kit coming out. It's kind of a rare car, but there are some in Japan, and I've actually sold headlights to customers in Japan, like you can see here, so that's pretty cool. For some reason, I'm having a Japan shipping issue now on my website, but I have about 5 cars, I think, in Japan that have the KnightDriveTV headlight system. So, there are C5s there. It looks like he had gotten a hold of one, the owner of Rocket Bunny, and they designed a Pandem kit. Let me jump back to, I think it was 2019 SEMA in the Toyo booth. There was an FC, which would be an RX-7, like an 88, 89 RX-7. He released an FC kit, and I really liked what he did with the front end. It took on this Group B feel, like Group B rally with these lights in the bumper, kind of an angular edge to it. And I like what he did. Additionally, he has done a kit for the FD, for the, I think it's the S14. He kind of made it a vintage front end. He took from what it originally was and made it like this vintage looking car. So you can tell that as a designer, he sometimes wants to reinvent the car a little bit. Sometimes he wants to just change. I would love to talk to the guy. Who knows if I ever will, but it would be very interesting to understand because he does not have consistency, which is a good thing. He really seems to look at the car and decide, what I want to do with this or what inspires me or maybe whatever research he does with that vehicle. So when it came to the C5 coming out with this Pandem kit, I'll be honest, I didn't know it was a Pandem kit until after I had left SEMA. I walked up on it. It was in the Toyo booth again. I immediately recognized it was a C5, and I was like, And this is coming from someone who I am generally a fan of Rocket Bunny and Pandem for the most part. I don't like every kit they make, but when I found out it was an actual Pandem kit and it wasn't somebody just trying to stick a name on it that they had created, it just didn't look like what I would have expected. I think the front bumper, the reinvention of the shape makes sense to me in the sense that that's something that company or he would do. But I was not a fan from multiple angles. I just thought, man, so let me break it down. So some people who want a wide body, it's about look, it's about presence, it's about riding the streets. Some people, obviously with a lot of these Rocket Bunny lip walk kits, they bag the cars. It's a parking lot presence. Me personally,
and this is maybe where a little bit I lean towards GM or something like IMSA, the C7 race car. Are functional wide body, to where you can clearly see these cars were widened to meet regulations in IMSA and things like that, but they still, they maintain function. I want something that visibly, yes, I want to know it's wide body, so maybe I take something that speaks to me a little bit more, but I want it to be functional. And so when it comes to the Pandem kit, my issue with it is it's really going to be a departure from function, and the reason for that is kind of multi-tiered, and so I'll kind of get into that here. So by my estimation, looking at the kit, it's easily 4 inches of width on each side, so you're talking about an 8-inch overall track width. And so immediately you have to talk about scrub radius, and I've brought up scrub radius in prior videos dealing with my TE37s that I have on my car for the wide body that I want to design for it, and how I obviously had moved that offset out. And when you move offset out, what you are doing is you're taking the center line of the tire and moving it outward from the axis that comes through the upper and lower ball joint. So what does that mean? Is that negative scrub radius, positive scrub radius? Are they bad? Scrub radius can kind of go both ways. And if you look at where OEMs put scrub radiuses, generally it's not dead on center, but it's close. And you do get steering feel. You do get a few advantages, I guess you could say, and obviously it's packaging. You can't always put that ball joint deeply, not like an F1 car or something. But in this case, 4 inches. If you look at the picture of the car here from the backside, you can almost see that the inner lip, the inner edge of the tire is probably, it's approaching, not quite to the edge of the original body line, but it's way out. And so what this leads to is, obviously, aside from scrub radius and the steering in the front, what you're looking at is, so they have something called like a motion ratio. And this is the relationship of where the coilover, if you have coilovers on a Corvette, or where the spring acts upon the control arms. And so in the C5, because of the transverse leaf spring originally and where the pocket was located, the motion ratio, what it means is the spring is acting, it has very little mechanical leverage beyond the point of where the spring acts upon the lower control arm. So you do have, obviously, brakes, calipers, there are things on the outside, but it was very close to where the ball joint was. And so this meant that the spring rate that the car comes with, it acts very much, it wasn't obviously one-to-one in the sense that it wasn't meeting at the edge. And I think it would be one-to-one how they rate it. Don't hold me to that, but I'm just speaking off the top of my head here. So the point is it acts as directly. It doesn't give the unsprung weight as much leverage to act upon the spring and have momentum. It really allows the spring to control and push the tire into the ground. So when you push all that outward, and you're talking about the weight of the tire package, the wheel has now got a thick offset, it's got a lot of backing to it, and you push that way outboard, not only you're putting a lot of stress on wheel bearings, but you're adding a lot to that momentum. And so that momentum is what you don't want. So it's going to increase loads on the damper. It's going to make it's going to upset the suspension. So let's just think about when you get this Pandem wide body, you've got a lot to work against. So you get the Pandem wide body, say $7 grand, $7,500 to ship in this kit. You got to get these wheels with these extreme offsets. We won't even put the tires in there. We'll just say you have to get the kit, you have to get wheels. So you're at 10 grand, 11 grand. You got to get it on the car, painted. So let's just call it a $15,000 project. To have something that still will affect your suspension in a way that I just think it went too far. That's kind of my issue with the Pandem kit for the C5. It wasn't really the design language, which I'll get to in a second, but more it was like, I can't see doing a track day and building a functional car around this wide body. And what I kind of like is I want to serve both sides. I want the guy who wants to do the parking lot thing, that wants to have a presence. I want a design to kind of meet that guy, but I also want it to be very functional. And I want to go on a track, and I want it to functionally, release pressure from the fender wells. I want it to,
you go to full brake dive, turning, and I don't want any rubbing, things like that. So it's like I want it to be functional, but that's where the Rocket Bunny or the Pandem kit for the C5 kind of went south for me. As far as the front end goes and things like that, talking about design, let's talk about design. My overall thing, it's to each his own on the design. I think it takes on kind of like a BMW M1. I think that was my feeling. That was an older car. Again, some people said it has a Pantera look. I don't know that I like taking the C5 as it is and taking it kind of backwards. My mind kind of does something different, but some people will like it. What I really don't like and what I powerfully don't like is the rear flares. I think the rear flares are, again, I feel like this is for affordability. This is for really pushing down the cost and increasing the margin of the kit, because it's making the mold smaller. So yeah, back to it now. Kelsey come in there and surprised me. So the flare design, the rear flare bothered me the most. I think it was a cost reduction issue, but it's just very tacked on looking. It's not what I personally will do. And believe me, like I said, I really always liked what this company did. I would have loved if I liked it more. It wouldn't change what I would do. It won't change my direction. I would have loved to see an option on the market that just was, and it's not even about function or anything specifically. It's just I think their other kits are so much better, and so it's kind of disappointing to me because the design language. Often people say that it's very RX-7-ish as far as the C5 Corvette goes. So I'm like, well, we could have done something that just, I don't know, felt better. But I'm just not into the extreme wide body. I think it's great for a street cruiser or a car on bags or something like that. But you're not going to track a car with bags, and you're not going to do certain things. People have and people do, but like my former business partner, and we put Tanner Faust in the car.
Let me go up a little on the front then. Is it okay? Yep. Okay. Let me go drive it a little bit, see what happens.
But that's what happens when you have partners that are a little... So, but, essentially, it's like I'm not hating on the kit. I think the kit is fine. It's just, you're talking about a $15,000 kind of deal of something that I really don't feel ends up as functional as I'd like. It's not about the design, but in the end, I'm like, I really don't like tacked on flares that just, you have this body line and then they just deviate. Because it's not a Japanese car and they're not really passionate about it. They're like, we'll put something out there to sell some kits to satisfy a need. And again, this is the problem with C5 market, and it will grow from here, but the C5 market is just so bad right now when it comes to, anything. And the problem with that is when a kit comes out like this, it creates so much excitement because people are just like, we have nothing. So of course everybody's like, oh, I love it. It's fantastic, because there's nothing else. You know what I mean? So, so just to wrap up with the kind of functionality side, obviously more width drops your center of gravity and things like that, but you're also pivoting a wider car around, which is kind of an elongated front and rear, polar moment, because you have the motor up front and the transaxle in the rear, and that's great for weight distribution, but it's not great for a polar moment. Essentially, you want everything compacted into the same tiny spot, hence the C8. And then just positioned slightly aft of the center of the car. So when you have to pivot that around a much wider track, you're making something that's kind of just less nimble and less maneuverable. So you have to be careful when it comes to, why are you wide bodying? Are you wide bodying for looks, or if you're going for function? It's about, wide bodies were originally done obviously in the 60s and 70s on cars that raced in A spec and B spec and things that were in SCCA, and obviously they did a flare because they wanted more tire. So what you should be doing is essentially not taking the tire and shoving it out this way. It should be allowing you to keep the inside edge of the tire where it is and move the outside edge this way. You are gaining some scrub radius, but at the same time, it's functionally remaining that you have more contact patch. Taking the same 295 and shoving it out this way it's just terrible. And and to each their own. I'm not hating on people that do that, because look, you know, some people love parking lot meets, some people love doing that kind of stuff, and I think it's great. You know what I mean? I want people to build things. They don't have to build my way. I took my supercharger off my Corvette. People are like, why the hell did you do that? So I'm different in some ways, and I think everybody should have their own approach to how they mod their car. But I'm just saying, just to explain to people my perspective, I think that you know, to me, function and form, and that is race cars. You know what I mean? It's about bringing a race car to the track that not only looks really good, but is extremely functional. I love that balance. Once you go too far in either direction, like my former business partner who wanted to air up and air down this mid-engine car, whew, guy drove me nuts. But that's the deal on that. So we're going to get back to the lights. So the lights obviously are coming. I give updates. People email me, why no updates, Damien? I haven't gotten any updates. I'm like, Facebook, website, YouTube. So the updates are here, guys. You got to watch videos. I'm sorry you have to watch me blab about this crap, but unfortunately I have to increase the price of the kits. In January, I have some supply remaining that I have paid X amount of price for, and it allows my, you know, the margin to stay where it is, but the prices of the headlight kits, they have to go up, and I have no choice. So the end of the year is all you get, and then January they're going up. So if you're on the fence about it, I would suggest you jump in line. We do have a back order, but you know, it's what you need to do. Jump in there, get your headlight kit. We're gonna have bezels coming. Don't worry about it. I needed enough a pool of people so that we can injection mold them. I don't want to print them all. I can't print them all. And I have printed bezels. Look. Okay, see here? I made this actually a long time ago. And look at this. Like, I'm squeezing it. Like, look. Yeah. I mean, it's tough. It's tough. It ain't coming apart. That hurts. So, I mean, it's tough. You know what I mean? But the problem is making this in this material, which I think this is like a matte PLA. It's more forgiving for me to make a part, but if I sit this in 100 degrees outside, it won't hold its shape. So that's where the issue, and ignore the design. This was something like I did a while ago. So this has nothing to do with what's coming, nothing to do with what's coming. So making this in ABS, printing this in ABS would be problematic. Tall things, thin things like this, because ABS wants to warp so much, it wouldn't happen. So these have to be injection molded. For me to injection mold them, I needed a big enough pool of people to be sure that we could get through a pre-buy to where I can say, hey guys, you know, I did the design, I sent it to the injection molder. They say that the mold and everything are going to cost this much, and then I could tell all you people that means this is how much they got to cost. So as long as we sell X amount on a pre-order and I can fund the molds and fund everything, then we've got bezels. So I feel like there's enough kits out there now that we should have no problem. But you know, that comes down to me reaching all you guys. So that's why I have the Facebook group. That's why I have Instagram. That's why Lace and Lassie, as she is called on Instagram, LAA.CEE, is always trying to engage with all you guys. And so, you know, I'm trying to be on platforms to keep you guys aware. So that's it for this one. I'm trying to make a lot of videos in December. I don't know why, but so back to it, folks. I'm going to get up there, get some lights done, get these kits shipped. Look for your email. They're coming. Thanks for watching Night Drive TV. See you in the next one.